All right, welcome back to Drew Pearson Live, and now we have our Dallas Movie Minute with our special guest, Paul Salfen. Good to see you this week, Paul.
Great to see you.
How are you? You're going to tell us about the movie Black Sea. What do you got
right.
going there?
Well, this is a really cool old-school style thriller starring Jude Law, where he plays a submarine captain who goes in search of a lost submarine full of gold.
Wow, cool.
And so it's just one of those classic claustrophobic little thrillers that I think you'd really enjoy. And it's directed by Kevin Macdonald, who won the Oscar for One Day in September. And he's directed so many great films. He did The Last King of Scotland, which of course stars Forrest Whitaker, who was on our show last week. And I think you're going to like this one. Comes out in theaters this Friday.
All right, so you got an interview with?
I do. Yeah, so Kevin Macdonald, we're going to...
Kevin Macdonald, right?
Yeah. And
director,
we're going to
is
get
he
some
acting
insight.
in it, or he's just directing?
Nope, just behind the camera this time.
That's his thing, huh?
That's his thing.
All right, let's check it out.
All right, sounds good.
This is like an old school adventure kind of film, and I see that you kind of styled it after some of your favorite old adventure films, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were influenced by movies like The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is a great Humphrey Bogart movie from the 40s. There's a great movie that William Friedkin, you know, who did The Exorcist and French Connection, he did, which was his big flop actually in the 70s, called Sorcerer. Which is a fantastic movie. If everyone hasn't seen it, they should check it out. Just been released and restored again. And so those sort of movies, which are sort of character-driven adventure stories, which, you know, I guess they also have in common that they're kind of about working guys. They're not about kind of, you know, the elite of society. They're about ordinary people being put into extraordinary circumstances.
And this film, of course, stars Jude Law, who's great in this movie. And
it's totally different Jude Law, isn't it?
Totally different.
It's not the Jude Law you've seen before, and I think that's one of the things that excited me about the idea of putting him in the film was that, I mean, initially when I met him, I was like, this Dad Jude, you know, he's such a kind of gorgeous matinee idol sort of guy. Is he really right to be a gritty submariner? But he kind of convinced me, and he worked so hard to change himself, to transform himself. And that's, I guess, an actor who's willing to really transform themselves is a director's dream, and that's what he does in this.
So many great scenes in this movie, but what do you suppose you'll always remember? Is there a certain day or scene or time that just will stand out for you if someone asks you about this film years from now?
Well, I suppose that the scenes that stick in my mind the most are the ones where we had, you know, like 10 or 12 actors in a tiny space on a submarine all at the same time and trying to figure out, how do I shoot all these people? How do I put them, arrange them in such a way that you can see them all? Because a submarine is like a long corridor, and trying to sort of see everybody, sort of peering around like this. And particularly because it had such great faces. This movie's peopled with just great character actors for the most part, and half of them are Russian. There's these Russian actors, and obviously the story kind of hinges on the fact that the crew is half Russian and half English speaking. And so those scenes, I think, where we had to work with the Russians and they had to sort of, you know, I had to have a translator working with me, and those are the things that maybe stick in my mind. Plus, actually, the other thing is just technically, I filmed this 2-week sequence underwater, and everything that James Cameron said about filming underwater is true. It's an absolute nightmare. But it's also beautiful when you actually get it right and it works. It's creepy and strange, you know, the big underwater action sequence that we have in this. But boy, that was hard to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looked very claustrophobic, but it really was claustrophobic film.
It really was claustrophobic because we filmed the first 2 weeks of the movie, we filmed on a real Russian submarine that we found, because there was this crazy thing. Some guy had bought you know, just as part of a hobby, he had bought an old Russian submarine when the Russian Navy were selling off everything like 20 years ago. And it's just sitting in a river outside London, this sub. And I kind of think, what does his wife think? You know, couldn't he have just bought a car or a horse or something? But instead he bought a submarine. So we discovered this old sub, and that became the model for ours. And with the exteriors you see are of this real submarine, and we filmed inside it for a couple of weeks. And so the actors really got to experience what it's like on a real submarine, and how claustrophobic it is, how smelly it is, you know, the diesel smell, all this sort of stuff, how little air. And Jude Law actually went on a real sub. He went down for 5 days with the Royal Navy in a nuclear submarine. And they said to him when he got on board, they said, you know, if there's an emergency and we get called to go to the Antarctic, sorry, we can't drop you off, so we can't guarantee you'll be back in time for the shoot.
Wow. And he did it anyway.
He did it anyway. And I don't think Universal were too impressed.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that I read about you is one that you allowed people to watch the playback, so the actors to watch the playbacks, and another thing that you never raised your voice. Did you feel like this was maybe the best collaborative way to make sure that everybody is on the same page in this tank?
Well, I think any movie I see as a collaboration. You know, I'm not the kind of director who comes in and says, this is exactly how I want it. Because I kind of think, well, my imagination is going to be limited. It's just me. If I allow other people to contribute, I can steal all their ideas and I can make something better. And I think that's, when you're working with great actors, you know, let them act. Let them invent their characters. Let them try things. If it's too much or if you don't like it, you just say, oh, I think it was better before. But oftentimes, people will just contribute something really interesting. And you know, whether it be a tiny little detail or they change the dialogue a little bit or they completely change, you know, I like that. Particularly because I come from making documentaries. That's what I do as well as making fiction films, and that's what I started doing. And I think when you come from documentaries, you like spontaneity. You like the kind of sense of not knowing what's going to happen next.
Congratulations, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Wow, that's good stuff, Paul. He seems like a cool guy, that Kevin Macdonald.
Really cool guy. You know, I don't think I'd want to be in a submarine for a few weeks with him or anyone else, but really, really cool guy. Like, can you imagine filming in there?
With him, right?
Yeah.
Well, Black Sea is out this weekend, so check it out at a theater near you. Paul, stick around, because we ain't going to let you go yet, because you're going to give us some insight on one of the hottest music festivals in Dallas.
That's right.
Right? So
Absolutely.
Stay tuned. You don't want to miss that.